Good evening, everyone. It's another beautiful day in Napa Valley. Thank you all so much for joining us again, all our friends and neighbors, and it looks like a few new friends and neighbors again this week. So nice to see you all for our great sustainable seafood tour. We're getting kind of close to the end here, and I think those of you who've joined tonight will really have a whole new perspective on all the pairings that you can do with Moscato, because it's going to be a lot of fun. A little bit of housekeeping. I'm sure most of you remember to click on participants so that you can see everybody else who's participating down at the bottom icon bar, and give you the ability to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. But also, most importantly, the chat box, because there's a lot of activity that takes place on the chat box while we're going along. Helpful tips, websites, and recipes, and lots of great information that you may need, as well as the questions coming in from the people who are joining us on Facebook Live will be posted by Laura. So great to see you all again today. It's very warm in Napa Valley this week. We've had another big heat wave. It's starting to cool down a little bit. So going out to Dollarhide Ranch today, we're just going to have a few shots that we were taking earlier versus a live cam, but we're looking at our Moscato Vineyard there at Parcel 1, seeing a little bit of what's going on with the Moscato. We don't get a good signal from this part of the ranch, so we took the video earlier today. We first planted Moscato at Dollarhyde in 1985. You know, we were founded by the Scally family from the south of France, and the Scallies, you know, have been growing wine and pasta grains and making pasta in the south of France since 1920. And growing up, they loved the taste of the Moscato grape and that flavor. And so after almost 10 years of Robert Scally looking for a site in Napa Valley, he actually chose to plant a little bit of Moscato for that nostalgia of his childhood, and his cousins really wanted a little Moscato on the property. There's not a lot of Moscato planted in Napa Valley. It's obviously not as high yielding in profits as Cabernet Sauvignon, but it does really well in Napa Valley for all the same reasons that our Sauvignon Blanc does and Cabernet Sauvignon does. It's those warm days and really cool nights, and that gives this great acidity to the wine, which we really don't get without that big diurnal shift that we have up at Dollarhyde. And that high elevation, we do get a greater diurnal shift than we do actually at the winery in Rutherford. So we grow almost 25% of all the Muscat Canelli, also called Muscat Blanc, in Napa Valley, which that sounds like, oh, we must make so much Muscat, but really there's only a couple of us crazy people growing Muscat Canelli in Napa Valley. But I think as you're all having a little sip of it, you can say that it is quite delicious. You can see the Muscat Canelli grape leaf there on your screen, how it's got those saw-edged leaves, very classic Muscat Blanc grape leaf that we're looking at there out at the ranch. So really a lot of fun to see the progress on the Muscat out at the ranch. So a couple little things. I have said a few times that this is Muscat Canelli or Muscat Blanc. Very often you'll see in the store a Moscato from California, and it tends to be from Central California and will be the grape Muscat Alexandria. And that grape can be a little bit more cloying and is also made typically in a sweeter style. So that style will be about half the alcohol of what our wine is at today. This wine's at about 11%. Those wines are typically at about 6%, meaning they have about double the amount of sugar that this does. So if you like this style or you like a sweeter style, remember to look at the alcohol on the label, because that gives you a good indication of how much residual sugar is left. And Ryan is showing us the beautiful entrance to Dollarhide Ranch, which we haven't had a chance to see as there's no signal there. But that entrance is at about 600 feet of elevation. It's a high elevation spot, even though it looks flat. And everything you see in front of you is part of the Dollarhide Ranch. And to your left and right is Sauvignon Blanc, and a little further up the road is the Muscat Canelli. So your view of the ranch from today. So let's take a look at what's going on in Rutherford. Our winemaker Brooke Shank is out there in the vineyard in Rutherford. While we only grow red grapes in Rutherford, I know many of you have been with us for the past 10, 11 weeks, and you want to see how that Merlot is doing. So Brooke, show us how the Merlot is doing out in the vineyard. We saw this when it first got pruned, and now it's looking like it's moving right along.
Right, yeah, so it's quite warm out here right now. There's a little breeze, so I hope you can hear me. So I'm standing in the same Merlot vineyard that we were doing, 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago, and we barely saw bud break at that point. And now we've gone through flowering. We're just at the end of flowering, and hopefully you can see we're actually starting to see some grapes, like a little cluster there. So this is exciting because this is the point where we're starting to see what our crop is going to be like for vintage 2020.
Wow, that is fantastic. One of the things that I really love is just the feeling of the season in California, because we really get that in Napa Valley, seeing what's happening in the vineyard. People always say, oh, California, you don't have seasons. Well, come to Napa Valley, we have seasons. It's a gorgeous day there. Thanks.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's pretty warm, and you can see we talked about cover crop. So the cover crop has been tilled into the vineyard now, and so it's looking really good. We have some good shoot growth here, and yeah, the vineyard just looks fantastic. Very exciting time to be here, just because we can see kind of the start of the clusters.
Awesome. Thank you, Brooke. Oh, and it is quite toasty, 92 degrees in Rutherford. We're just slightly cooler here downtown Napa Valley, but we're at the tail end of this heat wave that we had. I think it was over 100 degrees yesterday, and in our 100-year-old home without air conditioning, I've been feeling it. So it's nice to have it start to cool down and get back into growing season. So Brooke, tell us a little bit about this wine and how you make this wine, because it just jumps out of the glass. It smells just like the grapes, and you really, it tastes like it smells really fantastic. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the Muscat is exactly that. It's as it in the glass is as we taste it on the vine. It's one of the varieties that's super unique about that. So Muscat Canelli, it's aromatic. You get these beautiful orange kind of blossom, orange marmalade aromas and flavors, and like nectarine on the palate, and it has this beautiful acidity to it. The way that we do it, obviously there's some sweetness there. So the grapes are hand harvested at night. They come to the winery, and we put them through the press. They go to a stainless steel tank. We'll settle the juice out and settle the pulp to the bottom, and we'll rack off the clean juice, and then ferment it slowly at cool temperatures. And then we're tasting these ferments of the Moscato every single day and monitoring the sugar drop and kind of the acid and sugar balance. And then when we get to a point where we want to stop the fermentation, we just chill the tank down really, really cold. And then that will stop the fermentation, and that gives us the sugar level that you taste in this wine. We do, there are a lot of different styles of Moscato out there, but this is a wine in itself. It's 11% alcohol, so we're trying to balance the beautiful acidity and the alcohol and the flavor of Moscato as well.
This wine, it's technically an off-dry wine, and all of us think of it as being a really sweet wine. And when you think about that, you've really got to think about it more as an off-dry wine, because our instinct is to go to dessert. And I think Chef Todd Kawachi, you're gonna tell us how to really pair this wine properly, because when you do, it's really a dream. So Chef Todd, tell us what you're doing today and what you're pairing this wine with.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining us again today. The fun thing about this Moscato is that I almost consider it like a forgiving wine when it comes to food pairing. it has some of the key important characteristics that you look for when you want to just have maybe a little more leeway with your food and your flavors. And so to be able to focus still on sustainable seafood as we have been doing, and adding a few more elements in there that are maybe more exotic flavors, or the addition of spice in here really will work well with it. And so I think that anytime you have fun food that's spicy, it kind of fits in with the profile that you pick up from the Moscato. As we mentioned, the lower alcohol is really nice and makes it much more approachable, dangerously drinkable, I like to say, as well as the fact that the residual sugar that's in there is a great foil for anything that is spicy. So I think that works out well. I'm really surprised, and one of the things that works well with the food is that it has about 7% of titratable acidity in it. So there is still a really high clean finish of acid in there, but yet you don't detect it because it's such a fruit forward wine, and it's got all those aromatics in there that are wonderful, but it still has nice acidity to it. So from a chef standpoint, from a cooking standpoint, it's great to be able to have a wine that cleanses your palate with every sip. Even on the spice level there, the sugar and the acid level is going to help to kind of cleanse your palate. So it creates a great pairing to go with some foods like that.
Good point, Todd. I think it is one of our most acidic wines that we have. It's higher in acid even than our Sauvignon Blanc. So it's interesting, and that it does leave you with that juicy feeling in your mouth. So tell us what you're going to make.
So I am going to make for you today some poke. There's all different types of poke all around. The classics and the very original authentic poke basically come from Hawaii. And it was, you can imagine way back in the day that without refrigeration, they would basically just eat up as much of the fish as possible, whether they salt it, they cure it, they marinate it, use the indigenous ingredients, maybe the natural salt that's found there. And so essentially what it is fresh fish or seafood. It doesn't always have to be only tuna. In the case of today, I'm focusing on a very sustainable product that comes from Hawaii itself, from Kona, off the coast of Kona. There is a blue ocean mariculture, and they are making a small fish, they're raising a small fish called Kampachi. And Kampachi is almost like a small cousin to hamachi, which you're probably very familiar with. And the Kampachi adds a really nice kind of a buttery texture. It is a little more delicate in flavor profile. It's not overly fishy. The texture on it's really nice. It has a nice creaminess. So it really works well with this poke in particular. You know, if you go through Hawaii, you spend time like myself and our other guest chef, Chef Troy, who we have asked to join in, you'll know that poke is very popular and very common. And there are so many different varieties and types that you can find there. You can go into any shop or fish market, even the local Costco's have different types of poke there. So you might find octopus or taco poke, you might find shrimp, or all the different types of fresh fish that are there. So as long as you're starting with a really good product in the first place, you've got nice, clean, fresh fish, and then the rest of the variations are all up to you, all depending. In the case of having the Moscato that I'm really trying to showcase here, I'm not afraid to add a little spice to it. You'll find some that don't have any spice to it at all. Others that might have even some fresh fruit added into it, or some other types of garnishes in there. So it's kind of a great vehicle to go with. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple things here from the poke. And essentially, the recipe that was included in that you should always find with the link or check our website for that. It's a very simplified one that has a few ingredients that add a lot to the actual poke itself. So number one, first and foremost, I've already got my cubes of Kampachi. So the skin was removed off of it. There's no bones in there. I trim off any of the darker kind of what they call the bloodline that is underneath facing the skin. That's where the oily part is. And I basically just have the tender part of it all. And you can see a nice fillet section right here from it being trimmed down. And essentially what I do is cut it into long strips and then just cube it up from there. And you can cube it according to size, whatever you prefer. I don't typically make mine too big and too chunky, just so it's a little bit easier to eat. And so I've got that fish already cubed, well chilled, fresh in the beginning, and you start off with that great product in the first place. Now the idea is basically to show off all the other ingredients that will go well with it. And so in this case, show you my little garnish tray. These are all ingredients as well as a few extras that are on the recipe itself. These are some of my favorite things. Some of them are very typical or classical. Over here in the front, we have a little bit of fresh ginger. I really love that ginger with all these Asian flavors that you find in there. You absolutely have to have some soy sauce in this case, as well as some sesame oil. I love that nuttiness. Here's the spice component, and I decided to go with a couple different types of commercial prepared chili sauces in this case, instead of utilizing fresh chilies. Now you can always use fresh chilies. You could use chili pepper water, which is a local ingredient. But in this case, I wanted to standardize it so your recipe is going to turn out almost exactly the same all the time. The variations that you have between habaneros and serranos and jalapenos, if you're really into that, by all means add that. You get that really nice fresh chili flavor to it. But you also have that little bit of uncontrollable heat in there. And so I still like to have the control factor, since I am, again, showcasing our beautiful wine, and I don't want to overpower it by going too spicy. I always love the nuttiness of some sesame seeds. So there's black and white that have been toasted. Those are a nice texture and garnish in there. You absolutely have to have some sweet onions. This case, it happened to come from our garden, and this is Walla Walla sweet onions that I pulled out before they're actually ripened. So this is more like a spring Walla Walla, as well as some green onions, mostly the green, a little bit of the white. And I always like to put in some crunch and texture for refreshing, the refreshing profile. And so that's some cucumber with the skin still on. One other ingredient that's very classic in poke is to utilize some of the native seaweed that they find in the Hawaiian Islands. And so it's called either limu or ogo. And they are a different type of a small seaweed that you can find. You chop it up small and you mix it all into it together. In my case, what I've done as a substitute that's maybe a little more approachable to most tastes, as well as availability. It's kind of hard to find ogo and limu. But this is gomo wakame, and so it's a Japanese seaweed salad. You might have had it before in sushi bars. It already has some sesame in there as well, but it's got great crunch texture, good nutritional value. It adds a little color in there as well. So that's another substitute or kind of a go-to that I kind of standardize with. But otherwise, if you want to be authentic, you're going to go with ogo or limu. Another classic thing that the native Hawaiians would do is use inamona, which is candle nut, or otherwise known as kukui nut. And they would take the kukui nut and roast it and then chop it, and there would be a crunchy texture and a little bit of nuttiness in there as well. So that's another option that you might have there. So really the nice thing about poke is that it all is, as long as you've got all your prep done here ahead of time, you've got everything all organized, you've got your fish all ready to go, the assembly part of it is pretty easy. And the nice part is you can adjust it, customize it according to your own personal taste. You can make it spicier if you want to. You could put more vegetable in there. I know that it's really popular now to put in things like tomatoes or avocado, or maybe some might put pineapple or mango. And I think a lot of those would still match up with, because we have such a fruit forward driven wine here with the Moscato. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and mix in these ingredients. There's our onion. Almost every single recipe is going to have the onion in there. Cucumber may be one of those personal preference things, and that's one of my personal choices that I really like. I will also go ahead and add in some of the gomo wakame, and not too much. And I actually think this flavor profile of the gomo wakame salad, this seaweed salad, will work even better with our Moscato than the traditional ingredients. So a little bit of sesame seed. Here's our little yin yang of soy sauce and sesame oil. So I'm going to add some of the soy sauce as well as the sesame oil. And just a little bit goes a long way because it's roasted. As well as our two yin yang of sauces. So now both of these have vinegar, so they have some acidity in here, but they're also infused with garlic. So that's why I'm not adding any additional garlic to this. So this is probably about a tablespoon or so of the sweet chili sauce. You might also hear this called dragonfly sauce. And then here's our sriracha, which is very popular, and everyone will refer to that as rooster sauce. So if you happen to hear those or see those on any recipes, that's basically what they are. Okay? Now, even to this, with the soy sauce in there, this is all raw fish. And so I'm gonna actually go ahead and season with just a little bit of sea salt, just a tiny bit. I'm not relying solely on the soy sauce to be the sodium carrier on this. I wanna add that in there so that it has the chance to season the fish all the way through, as opposed to get a little bit too dark by putting in too much soy sauce. Here's my ginger going straight in here as well. So finely grated, You can use a ginger grater, or you can also use a microplane, and just give it a nice stir gently. You don't want to damage the fish by smashing it. You can make this up ahead of time if you like. Some prefer to have their poke marinated up ahead of time. Kind of cures the fish a little bit. I know that with the chili sauce on here and that acid that's in it, the vinegar that's in there, it would actually start to change the texture of the fish itself. So I don't want to go too long in advance. I actually prefer mine to be a fresher mix on the poke. So not a really long marination time on this one. That's basically it. We can give it a little taste, make sure our seasoning is good.
Looks gorgeous, Todd.
Wow.
Wow.
That spice is just right in there. It really pops. Sorry, did you hear my wow? When I put that in my mouth? That was a little too
my wow.
audible. Okay, so now to present this or plate this up, I usually like to utilize all the parts of the fish itself, but I also want to add always some fun ingredients and garnishes. And so one thing that I love to do when it comes to serving, whether it's ceviche or some chilled salad or poke or something, is to make an ice bowl to actually serve it in. So what I did yesterday was took some of our beautiful flowers from the springtime that are out in our garden, and I essentially made an ice bowl by putting this, pouring water in and then pouring the petals of edible flowers into the ice, and then setting a small bowl inside of that and then refrigerating it overnight. So now what I have is a great serving vessel for this.
Beautiful.
Makes for a fun presentation, keeps things nice and cold. Very impressive on a date if you want to impress somebody. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. There's the crunch, the texture. There's a little bit of that spice in there that's just right for this. A wonderful show-off kind of ingredient. And one of our guests that have joined us as well is a local product from out towards Sacramento called Tsar Nikolai. And they have caviar, wonderful American sturgeon caviar, as well as whitefish roe. In this case, I'm going with a very clean whitefish roe. And I'm going to garnish this right over the top for a little extra decadence, a little bit of that creaminess. Did I say a little?
Wow. Your
So,
wife is going to be very happy tonight.
She'll love that. Absolutely. Tiny bit more garnish here. You know, the nice thing about this Kampachi is that basically the skin, since it's a smaller and a younger animal, a younger fish, I can actually take the skin and turn it into little cracklings. And so I think I may have mentioned this before, utilizing if the skin is thin enough and delicate enough, you can do that. So what I did is I took a couple pieces of baking paper, parchment paper, 2 baking sheets or cookie sheets, and I sandwiched these in between with a little bit of sea salt, and then I baked it in an oven at 350 for maybe about 20 to 25 minutes until I basically have almost like Kampachi bacon, Kampachi cracklings. You can hear that crispy kind of a crackle. This adds a nice kind of textural component to it. It also utilizes the whole product, the fish itself. It might make something that you could actually use as a chip to eat it with. So kind of a fun way to utilize the product. It's almost like a crispy fish crackling, and you can serve it from there just like that. Now, you may prefer to have maybe some sushi rice with the vinegar, a little bit of sugar in there. You could eat this together with it. You could eat it with chips, just with a great bottle of this sitting on the porch on a really hot day like today, outside, 90+ degrees. Or you could also put it over some hot steamed rice. You could even do this mixture on a salad, which is very nice, refreshing. There's a lot of concepts that are out there that have that kind of a product that you can make your own bowl or put it over rice.
That is just beautiful. Wow. You're making all of us absolutely starving. Just beautiful. And that caviar is amazing. And you can actually get that from our friends at Star Nikolai Caviar in right close to us here in Napa. In Sacramento area, we have Ali Bulerchi from Star Nikolai joining us today to talk about their sustainable farming practices. It's really fantastic to have you joining us, Ali, and we've been learning a lot about sustainable seafood, and you are particularly high ranked and a leader in aquaculture in America. So please tell us about your farming practices and your sustainability, because there's so much, I don't even know where to start asking you questions because there's so much great information you can share with us.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for having us join, guys. And kind of as Chef alluded to, as I spin around one of our tins of caviar, really as our Nikolai, our mission again is handcrafting American caviar without the use of antibiotics, growth hormones, GMOs, synthetic preservatives, really focusing on upholding and advancing the highest levels of sustainability. And what does that really mean, or how do we really quantify that? At our farm, which is 40 consecutive acres in Wilton, California, we farm an indigenous white sturgeon, which inhabits the waters about 5 to 10 miles from where our farm is located. When you come to our farm, you hear a lot of running water. We try to mimic a lot of what Mother Nature does well. We add a lot of technology with the, let's say partnership we have with UC Davis. That partnership was established in 1984 when our farm was established, far before farmed caviar was really a thing, or farm to table was really a movement. So what we try to do that's a little bit different is we have our own hatcheries. We manage all of our own brood stock. We do all of our own spawning. The feeding, the care, the animal husbandry or stewardship is all done by extremely talented and passionate people. Our farm has solar panels, which, is a program that we started about 5 years ago. We got a wonderful grant from the state about 3 years ago to expand it, really helping our farm hedge against global warming. So the warmer Wilton gets, the more power we're able to, basically the more kilowatts of energy we're able to utilize to cool our tanks and ponds. Our ponds back in 1984 were the filtration that Mother Nature uses, almost like a organic biofilter. There's these floating plants in rivers and streams. They're called hyacinth. Their roots go from the surface of the water down to about the base of a river or stream. Fish enrich water with ammonia. The hyacinth's roots absorb it. They bloom. Eventually they compost and have to be collected in terms of our application for filtering water. But back in 2017, UC Davis, in partnership with our aquaponics initiative, showed us that through gravity, we could set up a greenhouse on a lower gradient plane than where our tanks and ponds are located, and utilize less, let's say, electricity and pumping water through the ponds that filter our fish water. And what happens is in this greenhouse, we were able to use the same Mother Nature concept and add a little bit of science to it. So we were able to take living plants or live root lettuce, for example. We have organic butter lettuce and organic romaine. And what happens is the roots float in our greenhouse and absorb the water that the fish have enriched. They convert the ammonia to nitrate, which creates the organic bloom. And when we talk about being sustainable, really what we're doing here is we're taking a formerly lost energy source and we're creating a tangible resource out of it. And that tangible resource is organic lettuce and produce that you can find at Whole Foods late this summer. What it really does beyond that is it actually cleans and purifies our farm. It allows us to be a closed loop farm. So we don't have discharge. We don't really impact the environment around us. We're the only sturgeon farm in the world that does this effectively. And this program really was an initiative that started with California's Aquaculture Association in combination with aquaponics. So the focus of everything we do is all about our caviar. Our award-winning estate-grown caviar started in 1984, but what really keeps us going and keeps us different and keeps us inspired is pushing the envelope on sustainability. So when we talk about using a whole fish, whether it's our smokehouse that does the smoked sturgeon, we'll soon be debuting our sturgeon fish sauce to utilize the sturgeon head and sturgeon skin. Really, that no part is wasted. Even the water that the sturgeon enrich fuel our organic butter lettuce that you can find in shops like Molly Stone's and Whole Foods very soon, all of which leads to better caviar. Really, the more stewardship we put in our environment, the more amazing, dynamic, clean, and healthy the product becomes for you. And in 2018, we were fortunate enough to be recognized with Whole Foods' Environmental Stewardship Award. as our aquaponics, as it began to successfully produce CCOF, organic butter lettuce, really got us some recognition. And, you know, we hope in the future to become even more sustainable as we're putting in initiatives to expand our solar work and potentially having a second greenhouse where we can start to do some vertical integration of different dynamic herbs. Like, you know, we're hopeful one day we'll be able to produce organic mint from award-winning caviar and provide it to our favorite coffee shop like Phil's Coffee. So, you know, those are some of the aspects of what Zarniklai does that are very sort of very unique, very different. And all of it is inspired by being sustainable, being creative, and having our focus always be amazing caviar. And anything we can do to sort of protect our terroir in the process, we're all about.
Wow, that's fascinating. And, you know, I've had your caviar many times. I've been super fortunate, and it's absolutely delicious. So how do we share that with our friends and neighbors around the country? Can you ship to everyone?
We can. I mean, if you guys are local to Whole Foods, you can always pop in. They'll have Prime member discounts where, you know, go look in the seafood section. You'll find our smoked fish. You'll find a varying variety of our sturgeon-based caviars. Some of our domestically sourced wild roes, like the whitefish and salmon that are Marine Stewardship Council approved. All of our products at Whole Foods and on our website are Best Choice by the Monterey Bay Aquarium. You can find our smoked sturgeon at the aquarium, and when they do events, you know, thankfully they support us by, you know, featuring our estate grade of white sturgeon. And if you go to our website, there's a coupon code, Saint Supéry, all one word, and you can save 25% off your order to try out what we do. So we obviously appreciate the collaboration with, you know, your amazing and the talented.
Thank you. That's really kind. And I was thinking I do like to fly into that Sacramento airport because it's so nice and easy. And I understand that a couple times a year you do give private tours when we're allowed to all get together. So maybe we'll keep an eye on your website for the fall. It can be a little stop in Sacramento and then a drive up to Napa to see harvest, because I think that would be a lot of fun. So thank you, Ali. Todd, did you have any additional questions about the caviar? I know you know everything about it.
You know, I just wanted to say that I've used your product for a long time, and I'm really impressed by the quality, just the pure quality of the caviar itself. But I also have a lot of fun with some of the flavored roes. This one was the standard whitefish roe, but I know that you do one that has yuzu in it, some that have wasabi, some that have ginger. So those are also fun as well, and they fit the bill for depending on the style of the dish that you're making. So I really enjoyed those. So thank you, Ali.
Awesome. Well,
my pleasure. I have the opportunity to introduce you to a good friend of mine who I've known for many years. We have to go way back to the 90s, probably 92, 93, when we were both working at Roy's Kahana Bar and Grill on Maui. This is way back in the day when Roy was still pretty small and everything was kind of growing, and it created some great opportunities for young chefs to start off. And so my friend, Chef Troy Gard, has been a very successful restaurateur in Denver, Colorado. But Troy also kind of got his growing up through Roy's corporate chain, being up and even traveling and spending some time working in Tokyo and Hong Kong and Singapore, a little bit of time in New York before he eventually ended up settling in Denver, Colorado, where he has pretty successful chains of some rock star restaurants. And we're looking forward to hearing how Troy approaches his sustainability with some of the local products and how he's handling everything there with the COVID situation in his hometown there. Welcome.
Well, thanks, Todd. Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually. I'm still getting used to this Zoom stuff. So am I loud enough for everyone out there? Everybody can hear me?
Good.
All right, loud and clear. All right, we're in one of our restaurants downtown here in Denver. It's called Los Chingones. And downstairs they're doing some takeout food. And tomorrow will be our first day of kind of reopening. So we're a little excited, a little scared, a little nervous, all of the above, you know, getting the protocols and the guidelines ready, and hopefully people will come out and support, and everyone stays cautious and safe at the same time. So pretty exciting. I opened Tag Restaurant right here, Tag emblem, 11 years ago here in Denver. I've been here about 20 years. And that was our first restaurant on Larimer Square, the historic Larimer Square. And the buildings on there are around 1850s. So we're in a beautiful brick space with 20-foot ceilings, wood floors, exposed ceilings. And since then, we were able to do well at that restaurant and just kind of kept rolling. So in the 11 years, we've opened 13 restaurants. We just opened our first restaurant in Houston actually in November. We've been closed now for 3 months, but that's been fun and exciting and a challenge to venture out of the state. And right now we're working on a restaurant in my hometown in Maui, and where Todd and I used to cook. And we just got finished with the drawings for the restaurant. It's going to be called Opihi, which is a crustacean limpet that clings to rocks in Hawaii. And obviously with this pandemic and zero tourism right now, we put that on hold. But eventually, hopefully in the next year to 2 years, we'll be able to open that back up in Wailea and build it out. You know, since we're on the sustainability topics here and this beautiful Moscato wine, I loved Todd's poke, and that caviar sounds delicious. I'm going to have to get me some of that. But tasting this wine and the beautiful vines, and I've got my beautiful wife over here, the beverage director. Can you come help me real fast? This is Nikki Gard. Can you talk about this wine and how we paired the dishes here?
Sure. Well, I think the wine has already been spoken about really well. I think, as Todd mentioned, the acidity really pairs nicely with a lot of the foods that we've been talking about. But it also does have some of that residual sweetness, which, because of that acidity, really helps it pair nicely with a medley of ingredients, as Troy will demonstrate.
So when Todd asked me to do this, I said, what kind of sustainability fish would I like to use with this beautiful wine? And I was thinking, you know, maybe some clams or mussels or squid or something. And I said, wait, right here in Colorado, we have the world's best striped bass. It's a Alamosa Bass. It's about 4 hours south of Denver. And it's a cross between an East Coast striped bass and a white bass. And the stripes on the fish are broken, as you can kind of see here. They're not real visual like a typical striped bass because it's a hybrid. But this is a beautiful type of fish. I already broke it down. There's the belly part, beautiful white fish. We're going to cook it with the skin on so it gets nice and crispy and actually keeps some of the moisture in there as well. Won't dry out the fish. With that, we use as much local as possible as well. We have some local arugula I'm going to do here. I'm going to have Nikki kind of do this screen for me, show us how we're going to be doing it. These are all the ingredients right here. I love to use avocado oil when I'm making salads. I just like the richness and the flavor of that. We're just going to toss this real quick. And we've got amazing farms here in Denver. We have this farm called Rutherford Farms, is where I got this local arugula. I like it going with this wine too because it's kind of peppery and spicy too. Yeah. It's really nice. We have potatoes, and they also come from Alamosa. I flew down and met the owner, Tyler, and they grow potatoes on their farm too. So what I did is blanched them real quick, and then we roasted them in thyme and butter. And we're just gonna put some of these little marble potatoes right on our salad there. Good for snacking too, right? I saw Nikki taking a few of these already.
Telling me.
And then over on the eastern side of Colorado, we have Palisade. And over there, most known for Palisade are their peaches. But right now is apricot season. So look at these beautiful apricots that we're going to put on there. So a little stone fruit. Also, what we got over in Palisade are these beautiful red cherries. And I just thought the stone fruit went really, really well with the wine that we're drinking here. Man, I can taste all the flavors right now.
Should have a sip of the wine just to make sure.
Let's sip the wine. Living in Asia, like Todd said, I like a lot of sweet and sour umami and type of flavors. I didn't want to overpower the wine, but we pickled some shallots and we pickled some jalapenos for a little spice, a little sour, a little sweet, hot and sour. And I thought it went really, really deliciously with this wine and fish and salad there. Really simple and easy. And as a matter of fact, in my fridge, I keep pickled ingredients all the time. And I love to throw them into dishes. It adds a punch to a lot of the things that we like to eat. Then I like some fresh mint right on top of there. And some fresh chives, nice herbaceousness in there. I'd probably just eat the salad just by itself without the fish. But
I'm ready.
then just for a
With
little
the
bit
wine,
of
of
crunch,
course.
a little bit of crunch, we put some salted pistachios on there. We roasted them with a little sea salt and a little bit of that avocado oil. And then what we did with this beautiful Alamosa sea bass is we just kind of scored the skin like this. We do this in the restaurants, score it, and then you cook it flat side down, skin side down. We don't even flip it. We cook it in the pan. It might bubble up a little bit, just kind of press down on it a little bit. And then it comes out just like this beautiful piece of fish right there. So the skin is crispy, nice crunch, very moist on the other side. And then what we did is we took some of the pickling liquid. I took some of those apricots. I did one cherry and a little jalapeno in here. And I blended it with the avocado oil. So we're just gonna put that right on top of there. It's kind of sweet and spicy again, but delicious. And if I can hand that cocktail right there, yes, that one. Sorry, guys. My wife's going to talk about this. Since we're at Los Chingones, we decided to make what is this, a frosé with your wine. Frosé with prickly pear, apricots, and the wine we made earlier. She's already drank half of it, so you know it's good. But why don't you tell us what you put in there, Nikki?
I think you just covered it.
Tell us. Drink it. Sip it.
As you mentioned, I love them. I drink them almost every day. But yeah, we thought we should try with some prickly pear, some white peach, a little of the Moscato, and a touch of lime just to keep her being too sweet. And we throw it in our frozen machine, but at home you could even do kind of a makeshift job where we put the wine in ice cube trays, freeze it that way, maybe pop a couple of berries in there to make it pretty, and we throw it in the blender and it makes for a really nice DIY frosé.
Oh, good idea.
Yummy.
Very nice.
So that is the dish right there.
It's beautiful.
You know, just the textures, the color, the crunch, the soft, the sweet, sour spice. And again, going with this beautiful wine right there, I just thought it would come out great. And it certainly does. We are finishing up the touches on the recipe for everyone, just because this dish is not in the restaurants and all our restaurants are closed. So I had to go to Whole Foods and buy all these beautiful ingredients. But I will write the recipe up and I will send it over to Emma and Todd, and hopefully they can get it to you later today, if not tomorrow. And if you do come by Denver or Houston, please stop by and see us.
Awesome.
Can everyone see that pretty well?
It looks great, Troy. As
Troy,
you're
that's
talking
gorgeous.
about all those ingredients and adding them in there, I'm thinking that will go great with the wine. That goes great with the wine. That brings it all in together. So that's a really nice dish. That should be a perfect match with the wine there. Nice job.
Cool. Yeah, I thought for spring and summer right now. And then when Nikki got her hands on this wine, she made that frosé, and I was like, dang, that's a great idea. So we'll put a little recipe together. We practice doing, they're letting us do takeout alcohol here. So we practice freezing some of the ingredients taken at home, and you throw it in your blender, and it comes out just like a frozen margarita. So,
Wow, very creative. Thanks, Trev. That's awesome. Thank you very much.
thank you for having us.
Thanks, my
Thank
pleasure.
you. Amazing.
So we're actually going to jump back to Napa now. We have Tarla Mediterranean Grill that's been a great host and partner of ours by selling our wines, offering our wines there, and they feature Mediterranean cuisine, which works really well with our wines as well. And so from Tarla in Napa, if you happen to ever come through, be sure to check them out. We have Chef Jason, and Jason is joining us maybe from the kitchen, where he's going to be talking about some of the dishes that he feels will go really well with our Moscato. Jason?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tarla. Let me just take you back here real quick. We have the chef's cooking. The featured dish we were going to be showing you guys today would be our rocky prawns. And as you can see, it's a little bit busy as we just opened this weekend. So I'm going to give them just a few seconds to try and get everything going. But I just wanted to talk about the dish for a quick minute as we pair it with the Moscato. I love the dish itself is made with caramelized fennel, garlic, marash pepper, which is a hot Turkish pepper, which helps stand up to that sweet, little bit of sweetness and crispness. And the caramelized fennel with the anise in there really helps cut that honeysuckle. So with that dish, we saute all of that together with the tiger prawns. When in season, we are using local Santa Barbara spot prawns. And then we flambe it at the table with ouzo. So we'll go ahead, go back there and get that ready for you guys.
You gotta love any dish that's on fire. That's just gotta be fun, right?
Oh, yes.
I was going to say the same thing. Flambe is one of those old techniques that comes back, but it's a showstopper. It really adds a lot to the dish. Nice touch.
It most definitely does. And then it's always a good show for everybody.
Well, I have to say you have a lot of dishes that I think pair really well with this wine. Not just those spot prawns, but also you have a great variety of wonderful the flaming cheese that you also do. That's a little vegetarian side, and the branzino is another nice complement to it. So you've got quite a few choices for us.
It most definitely does. So if you're in the Napa area, definitely stop by and see us.
I know that Branzino's made a lot of progress on their farming methods as well. So you can really get some affordable Branzino now that's farm raised here off in the US, where before it always had to be special ordered and imported from the Mediterranean. And so now there's options and the ability to get Branzino, which is a delicious fish and pretty versatile as well.
Most definitely, especially with the recent pandemic, there we go.
There we go. That looks fantastic.
Wow.
But yes, with the recent pandemic, it was very hard to source Branzino from the Mediterranean, being as everything was shut down. So we started looking into local farming practices, as well as trying to, evaluate the menu just around more American farms, as we always try to do. We're working with a local farmer here in Napa. Her name is Cindy. It's Napa Farm Fresh. And I'm actually awaiting an order of her first grapefruits and berries to come in today. Sorry, bear with me. I'm new to the Zoom, so trying to find all the buttons to switch over.
Well, that looks fantastic, Jason. And I saw that you had a little bit of our Andrew Jackson Dollarhide Brandy there, which is made from the Muscat Country wine, which is kind of fun. It's a fun little project that we did where we took some of the Muscat Canelli wine and we double distilled it with a small craft stiller, small copper stills. And then instead of cutting it back in the traditional manner with water, we cut it back with the Muscat Canelli wine itself. So it's got some of that beautiful perfume quality that we know the Muscat Canelli for. And it looks like you've made a fantastic cocktail with that. So that also looks cool and refreshing. We're all into cocktails tonight.
Right.
What you got there?
Yes, we went ahead and made a French 75, which was traditionally made with brandy back in the day, and then it switched over to gin. So we thought we'd take it back to the classics with your lovely brandy you guys do there.
Wow, that looks like a lot of fun.
Very nice.
Absolutely delicious. Well, you know, the other person we have joining us today, also from downtown Napa, is Joel Pfeifle. And Joel is in charge of the bar scene, both upstairs and downstairs at the Archer Hotel with Charlie Palmer, and is always coming up with a great new cocktail recipe. And I know you have something fantastic planned for us this evening. Joel, tell us what you've got.
Hey, Emma, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I got really excited when you guys talked about this. I thought I was going to get some of the brandy, but then, you know, I got the wine and that worked even better. So this Moscato is really great for going in a cocktail. I mean, it's got such great balance of flavors and everything already. I really didn't want to mess with that too much. I really wanted to highlight all those flavors. Just got really lucky, recently moved, and there's a Meyer lemon tree in our backyard. So I got really excited to do a little bit of that, blend that with the wine, and just a little sparkling water. I didn't want to add any more sugar to it because it's got that perfect amount of residual sugar that will blend in and pair really nicely with the cocktail. And so I added a little bit of grapefruit sparkling water, and that just put a little lemon verbena from the garden over the top. If you got mint, that works great too. A little rosemary. And we talked about some other sparkling waters as well that would work really nicely. So you can play with flavor combinations. Goes really well with blueberry, a little bit of pineapple.
I like that idea, a little blueberry. That looks fantastic. And I think that's what I need to have been drinking the last few days when it's been 100 degrees here downtown in Napa without air conditioning. So that looks really, really fantastic. So Joel, also tell us what your pantry tip would be to have with this wine. You know, it's getting a little towards the end of the week. We all don't have our caviar stocked up in the refrigerator. So what do you have as a pantry tip?
Yeah, no, I ate my caviar already. I'm going to get some ceviche with this. Just dice some fish up really nice and put it in, or like a nice agua chili. Put a little chilies, some citrus juice, because I already got citrus juice. I might as well use it up. And then a little nice, delicious fish in there.
I like that. That's a nice bridge, carrying the citrus over between the two drink and the dish.
And if Chef Todd drops off some poke, I'll drink it with that, because that's the easy.
That works too. The same kind of idea, a little bit of spice, but exciting flavors. And it should go really well with that Moscato. What about at your bar upstairs especially? Do you have any favorite dishes or appetizers that would go really particularly well with this Moscato? Any of the best sellers?
Yeah, of course. This would go killer with our lobster corn dogs. Everybody looks at us funny when they see it, but I mean, they're insanely good. We take a little, mash that up with just a touch of shrimp, and then our own cornmeal batter. We lightly fry them. Can't go wrong with that chipotle aioli.
Those are famous.
They are delicious. You guys are making me really hungry. That's an excellent suggestion. And of course you have fantastic oysters there. And I always love that crab cocktail.
And we do some oysters Rockefeller downstairs as well that they would pair really nicely with. The Moscato would go bring out that nice cooked flavor really beautifully as well. So.
Oh, gorgeous. Well, thank you so much, Joel. That looks just fantastic. You've got us all drooling, all of you chefs. So Chef Todd, tell us what's coming up here. What's our last stop on the Great Sustainable Seafood Tour?
So our tour is kind of wrapping up next week, and I am again going back to Hawaii to source some wonderful aquaculture raised shrimp from Kauai. So these are beautiful shrimp that I typically will get it head on. They're fresh shrimp that are shipped over, and it's a fantastic product. They have this nice kind of a clean, sweet flavor to them, but they also have a nice texture where they're not too hard and crunchy. They have a nice, delicate kind of a tender texture to them. So pretty versatile as far as shrimp go. And we're going to work that into pairing with our Sauvignon Blanc, our Dollarhide Sauvignon Blanc. So that's, we'll wrap up our tour. As we're going through, and we've been talking about the different featured types of cooking preparations or style of cooking or preparing the dishes. Today is basically mixing almost like cured raw meats and things. And so it's essentially like a ceviche, like a poke. But for next week, it'll be poaching and talking about how the poaching technique kind of preserves or simplifies some of the characteristics that you find in the seafood that you have. So we'll be doing that for next week. Any of your recipes, any of you that are cooking enthusiasts, food enthusiasts that have your favorite recipe that you think will go really well with our Sauvignon Blanc, remember that we are doing our great sustainable seafood recipe contest. So if you get onto our page, you'll find an entry form. So if you have a recipe, maybe you can write it all out, take some pictures along the way and send that in, submit that for our contest that will be finishing up around August. And so I encourage you to do that because I always enjoy seeing all the different recipes and trying some of them out.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, the recipe competition. And as you said, it's the end of our Great Sustainable Seafood Tour next week. And Chef Todd's going to take a break for a couple weeks. And then during that time, we're going to be partnering with our good friends at Silverado Vineyards, also one of the few 100% estate grown, produced, and bottled wineries in Napa Valley. And so we're going to be tasting a couple wines for them on Friday night for 2 weeks. And then we'll be back with our iGourmet tour with another 6 wines on Thursday nights again. So look for that. You can check it out on our website. There's lots of places to purchase the wines near you. Of course, you can always look at our wine finder and find those retail locations near you to purchase the wines. And we're happy to help you, or you might already have them in your cellar if you're one of our club members, so you're ready to go. So thank you all so much for joining us. And until next week, we wish you good health. We thank our guests and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks to our guests. Thank you.